Hi, Warren, how are you?
What brings you to Omaha?
I'm just in town, kind of passing through, thought I'd stop by.
It's a tourist stop, yeah.
It is. Hey, are you ready for this weekend?
I'm ready for this weekend, sure.
Is this your favorite weekend of the year?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah, yeah.
What are you expecting with the crowds here this year?
It should at least match the record. And in terms of the tickets we sent out, it was just a touch higher than the record year. It fell off the first year when Yahoo started webcasting it, and then it's come back. So it'll certainly tie the high.
There's a lot of things that are happening, but as we were building up this week, kind of heading into things, we heard about the deal where you're stepping in and backing Occidental and its bid to take over Anadarko. How did that come together?
Well, it happened right here. On last Friday, less than a week ago, last Friday, I got a call in the middle of the afternoon from Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America, and he said that they were involved in financing the Occidental deal, and that the Occidental people would like to talk to me. And I said, fine, I can talk to them anytime. And I think he emailed later on and said this, that Becky, CEO, was traveling, and that she'd call me the following morning. So she called me about 9 o'clock on Saturday, and I said I'd meet with her anytime, and on Saturday or Sunday. So we scheduled a meeting for 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, and she and Oscar Brown came. They arrived at 10 o'clock, and by 11 o'clock we had a deal, and they had us committed unequivocally, come hell or high water, for $10 billion. And if the deal is made with Anadarko. So they had to get their own board approval, but they walked away with the 9/11 happened or anything like that, they had $10 billion for the deal.
Did you do this because you're betting on the oil industry or the Permian Basin or on oil prices, or is this just the terms of the deal itself?
Well, the oil prices are the big determinant over time, obviously. If you're in oil, same thing is true if you're in copper for copper price. So oil prices are enormously important, but I was familiar with Occidental. I'm generally familiar with the Permian Basin, although I've never been there. If I were there, I wouldn't know what to do. But no, it was a sensible deal for us, a sensible deal for them. And I proposed it, and they decided whether it made sense. And then when we finished at 11, and they went back to the plane, I called Ron Olson. He's on the West Coast, so it was 9 o'clock his time. And I said, we need to get this done by tomorrow evening. And I said, Cravath will be their lawyers, and I assume they'll get similar instructions. So just make whatever it takes and get it done. And in 10 minutes, Ron had a couple of people working on it.
You mentioned the plane, and there was a story, I'm not sure if you saw that, about the plane that Occidental took out here got picked up by some people who were scouting for it, and someone wrote an article about it, and a guy who'd been tracking it saying, hey, maybe this is what's really happening there.
Yeah, I read about that service. I read about it years ago where people track plane numbers and try to make deductions, particularly if they're going to some small town where there's only one employee or something of the sort. So that fellow turned out, whoever it was, turned out to be correct, but I think I should point out to anybody out there who wants to do business with us that if they take a NetJets plane, nobody will be able to track them. And we might, for those of you who don't know, we might own that. We do own NetJets, and it really does make a difference. I mean, you cannot track who is going from here to there, and if you use a company plane, it's a big way of running a billboard that I'm in town for something.
Good commercial
yeah,
for
absolutely.
NetJets
Yeah.
on the way with that. I don't know if you saw it, but Charlie gave an interview today to the Wall Street Journal, and he says that he wishes Tim Sloan was still running the bank. Do you? Well,
I was 100% behind Tim Sloan, as I told you, the day that it turned out that his resignation was announced. He told me the day before, but I think Tim Sloan, from everything I know about him, is an excellent banker, and I was delighted when he was running the bank, and it just got so he felt he couldn't be helpful under the circumstances that existed in Washington. So he decided to resign, but I would have never asked for his resignation.
There have been some other headlines that came out of that. Charlie said he doesn't want a Wall Street guy making the damn decisions around there. I think that's what he said, the damn decisions.
He may have even said worse than that.
Yeah, you have said similar things. You said it a little more politic than he did. But what's wrong with a Wall Street guy or a Wall Street woman? Why would you want a mainstream banker versus Wall Street?
Actually, there are plenty of people in Wall Street that would be very capable of, not plenty, but you know, certainly dozens,
yeah,
that would be capable of running Wells Fargo. And, but they would not be, they would be piñatas from now until the election time. And they would face questions that aren't really questions, but senators and congressmen that are using a hearing to make a statement, and they wouldn't be listening to what they said or anything of the sort. They'd be poison in Washington. And Wells doesn't need poison in Washington. And frankly, anybody that wants a job and is good enough to take that job shouldn't want it either. I mean, it's a terrible way to spend your time.
Right, just in terms of what Washington's doing. So it's nothing you have against Wall Street, it's just
the
climate?
I mean, we own stock in J.P. Morgan, we own stock in Goldman
America,
Sachs. And,
Goldman Sachs.
I mean, no, there's a lot of people that are very capable of running very good banks. I think we've got the very best of them, that they, it's just under these political circumstances, Wall Street associated with banks, associated with one that people can make political speeches about, is just going to be poison between now and the election.
Charlie had a few other things to say. Let me quote a few things to you, because he really laid into Dick Kovacevic and John Stumpf. Here's what he said about Dick Kovacevic. He never listened to anybody, he never stops talking, and he's full of himself. He would not learn anything from anybody. What do you think?
I like Dick Kovacevic. Dick expresses himself very forcefully. Charlie expresses himself very forcefully, and maybe the two don't mix that well.
But you like Dick Kovacevic?
Oh, Dick, I mean, you know, he was there during the financial panic, and you know, Wells came out of the panic better than I think any major bank. And when Wachovia needed saving, it was great that Wells was there, and Kovacevic, I believe, was running things. I'm not sure exactly when he turned the baton over to John.
Well, speaking of John Stumpf, here's what Charlie had to say about him. He said he was almost as bad, but not so loud and persistent.
Yeah, well, I don't. I would say he was as good, and then you could follow the rest of it.
You're going to have more things to probably clean up from Charlie after he says these things this week?
Well, yeah, this is just a warm-up for the next week. I'm glad you're sort of getting me in shape here.
I wanted to talk to you just what you thought about Apple's earnings. They just came out this past week. Better than a lot of people had been expecting. Were they better than you had been expecting?
Well, I don't really have big expectations about quarterly earnings with that company, even with Berkshire. I mean, so I was pleased with what they reported, but it wasn't like I had something going in my mind. If they reported X, I was going to be happy. And if they reported 98% of X, I was going to, you know, be panicked or something of the sort. But what they talked about and reported is consistent with the reason we own, you know, $50 billion plus of Apple. I feel good about Apple.
Have you been buying more Apple?
We haven't changed our holdings unless, and I have no reason to think this is true, but there's one fellow that owns a little over 1% of our holdings in the office, and I don't see what he does today. I have no reason to think he's bought or sold Apple.
Once in a while, you'll tell us something you're buying or selling. Anything else you're buying or selling these days?
Well, I wouldn't tell you. I will tell you one thing. I'll tell you one thing you'll see in the 13F, which comes out in a couple of weeks, which may cause you to ask me that question in 2 weeks, but doesn't really, is not significant from my standpoint. One of the two other fellows in the office that manage money.
Todd and Ted?
Todd and Ted. One of them bought some Amazon, but so it'll show up on the 13F. It is not true to say that I am buying Amazon. It's true to say that Berkshire is whatever shows up there.
Although you've been a fan of Amazon and Jeff Bezos for a long time.
Yeah, I've been a fan, and I've been an idiot for not buying it. But I just want you to know that it's no personality change that's taking place or anything. It's somebody else's.
Okay, so we'll keep that in mind when that comes out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We did just hear from the Federal Reserve this week, Jay Powell, the chairman, making some news on Wednesday when he said that he thinks inflation is transitory. Do you think inflation is transitory? I think the transitory was the word.
The lack of inflation?
Yeah, the lack of inflation, and that meaning that, look, the street took it to mean that he could raise rates, that might be the next move, when there were people thinking he might lower rates. What do you think?
So he was saying, in effect, that the abatement or the
right.
modest
that
growth
we're not going to say there's no inflation for forever.
Yeah, well, I agree with him. I don't know anything about what's going to happen when or what the Fed is going to do or anything else, but I think that I don't think our present conditions can exist in terms of fiscal and monetary policy and various other elements of the political landscape. I don't think they can coexist with really low inflation rates over time. But I've been wrong on that for some time, and I may be wrong for a long time in the future. I would say this: there's nobody better to run the Federal Reserve or be the chairman of it than Jay Powell. I've had some experience with him in the past, and he would be my choice.
Just in terms of things you might be surprised by, I'm stunned that we're still looking at a 10-year with a 2.5% yield.
Well, that's what I can't reconcile a 5% budget deficit in a world of low unemployment, low interest rates, negative interest rates in many countries. No economics textbook I know that was written in the first couple thousand years discussed even the possibility that you could have this sort of a situation continue and have all the variables stay more or less the same. So I think it'll change. I don't know when, I don't know to what degree, I don't know what part of it will change, but I don't think this can be done without leading to other things. In economics, like other things, you can never do only one thing.
Right.
And we will look back this period and be surprised that we didn't see what was coming next.
Warren, I want to thank you for your time today. I know you have a lot of things that you have on your agenda, but thank you very much.
Well, thanks for coming.
Good to catch you.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll see you later this weekend.
Great.
Take care. Bye-bye.